Today we just got new leaks in regard to the Black Ops 7 Zombies DLC season. And it's actually very interesting because it's actually going against previous leaks that we had, which is quite fascinating. I want to talk about all of that, but I'm sure all this is going to be very exciting to you, so make sure to drop a like and subscribe, and let's get right into this. Now, the first thing I want to mention is actually where these leaks are coming from. They're actually coming from the Ghost of Hope. So he's been pretty reputable. He has like one big miss that, if you guys remember last year, like the whole thing about there being 5 DLCs for Black Ops 6. Obviously, that didn't happen, but everything else in my memory that of all his leaks have come true. So you could take it with a little grain of salt if you want. But of course, the first thing that he actually talks about, and actually they should just jump over to this, is his tweet here. But what he says is that in regards to DLC 1, Astra Malorum, the one that we got this teaser from a while back, but he says, this is supposed to be that space station map. Now, if you guys don't remember, the initial leaks for the DLC season of Black Ops 6 was going to be like an alternate universe New York map during World War II, where the Germans won the war instead of the Allies. And then there's another one that's going to be in Afghanistan, another one that's going to be in Japan at the bottom of a volcano, and then another one that was going to be in Vietnam. And finally, there's going to be a space station map. There's going to be, in other words, 5 DLC maps. Now, this has already been expected. What happened is that they actually canceled the alternate universe New York one because people don't want to see, I guess, the world where Germany won World War II, which I don't blame people for. But regardless, so it seems like what was supposed to be DLC 5 as that space station map might have been this one. But what I find interesting is that he does say that a lot of these DLC maps seem to have canceled or replaced. And the reason he says this is that it's not even really canceled or replaced, but what really happened here is that they were doing like concept art of what they had an idea of what they wanted these DLC maps to be. Like, keep in mind, those leaks were like midway through earlier this year. I think like we weren't even on DLC 3 yet for Black Ops 6. So it makes sense that a lot of those maps weren't actually guaranteed to be a thing. Like, they were just throwing out ideas at the time. And it seems like because of that, a lot of those maps aren't going to be there. Obviously, the New York map isn't going to be there. And then on top of that, he says right here, the Japanese volcano map isn't going to be there. And I mean, there's still the possibility of, well, the other maps that we'll see in a bit. But another one that has changed is actually that space station map. Now, even though he calls this the space station map, it seems like it's not entirely just a space station map. And you guys could probably already read what it says here, but it says that it takes place in an observatory upon a skull with a red glow in space. He said from another source that it may have some parts that take place on Earth similar to Moon, but this is something he's 100% on. So, not exactly a space station, right? Like, the original leak was a space station in the dark ether, and this is even crazier. It's like on top of a red glow. Wait, I thought it was a skull. Where did I guess? Oh yeah, a skull with a red glow in space. Like, that's not a space station, but honestly, I think that's a lot cooler. So I'm very excited for that, and also the fact that some places might be taking place on Earth, the other might be taking place on space. Well, not the moon. I don't know why I highlight that, but yeah, so that is very interesting. So big changes to a lot of these maps, which is something we should have like thought of, because again, like I said, like a lot of those maps were in the very early concept places. But another interesting thing he says here is that the Wonder Weapon vehicle seems to be involved in an overarching story beyond Ashes of the Dam. So the Wonder Weapon vehicle working Ashes of the Dam is supposedly going to be in Astra Malorum DLC 1 also. So we'll see how long that goes on. But the final thing from this tweet that is very interesting is that the current plan is still 5 DLC maps. And oh, and this one's the interesting part. Well, actually, we'll just stick to 5 DLC parts and we'll come back to the other part. But keep in mind, again, last year, Ghost of Hope is the one who said there's going to be 5 DLC maps for Black Ops 6. And it was wrong. Keep that in mind. But the fact that there's not a bonus map on launch, I feel like they did that on purpose. They said, let's get rid of that bonus map and just add it as a DLC map. You know, I feel like that could be a situation here. And don't be surprised if one of the DLC maps that we get is actually just, you know, a more similar to a Liberty Falls than a full-blown map, like, you know, the regular DLC map, like, let's just say Shattered Vale or something like that. So think about that also. But the final part in this tweet that is very interesting is that he says there is planned to have a remake among those. So one of the maps we could be getting could be a remake, which would be very interesting. Now keep in mind that Ash to the Dam is kind of a remake of Transit, but not entirely. I wouldn't even say it's a remake, like it's just the spirit of Transit is there, honestly. That's the best I would say. But we can imagine it'd be something along the way, which I'm trying to think what would be best, because the original idea of those maps, because like I think the same idea is going to be there with those DLC maps. Like that story hasn't changed. The fact that we're going to go to different areas to tie to the OG characters we're playing as, because the idea, there's the Japanese map, the volcano one, that's going to be tied to Tokyo, then Vietnam map tied to Dempsey because he's a Vietnam vet, and then alternate universe World War II was going to be Richtofen, and who am I missing? Nikolai, who's going to be somewhere around there too. So I'm assuming they're probably going to still do that, except maybe just in different locations or stuff like that. And I'm thinking, out of all of these people, who would the what's it called, the one have a remake on? Because we don't really have a Vietnam map that would tie to a Vietnam vet that Dempsey is. We don't really have any alternate universe ones that Richtofen could tie to. And I mean, the only two that I think it could possibly be would be the story of rather no, Nikolai or Tokyo. But Nikolai, this is the alternate universe version of the Tokyo, or not alternate universe, but the alternate timeline where he fought in the 80s during Afghanistan. But I feel like if I just had to guess, my guess would be the remake would be tied to Tokyo. Again, it couldn't actually be tied to that in them, because all of a sudden now you have 5 DLC maps, so it could be separate from that entirely. But if we are assuming all of that, which is a bunch of assumptions here so far if you guys can't tell, I would guess Tokyo seems like to be the more likely one to have a map that he's based on, like a remake of a map that he could be based on. And if that is true, and all of it is, I think Zetsubo would be a complete option here. That would be very, very interesting that we get a Zetsubo remake. And I mean, we do have another Japanese map. I mean, it was where is it? It was Shinonuma, obviously. How did I forget about that for a second? I don't think they'll do Shinonuma though. So Zetsubo potentially. I'm just saying, bunch of guesses there, but then potentially Zetsubo could be there. But that's not the only tweet he made about this stuff. I actually want to go over some other stuff that he said, and let's go to the next one. He quoted his own tweet, and this is where he explains stuff. He says, "So with this, the Nazi nuked New York City, the Vietnam and Afghanistan map would have been canceled. The canceled leaked maps." So again, he says canceled, but it's not really canceled. I've heard that the original leak stimulated from a pure concept art. So so exactly, they were concept art. So obviously they weren't like canceled deep into development or anything like that. I am of the opinion that a lot of those maps didn't even make it very far. Exactly. See, like this makes sense to me. Like again, when those leaks came out was super early on. Black Ops 6 still had 2 DLC maps left. So obviously that wasn't going to be the case. And honestly, I think this is a good thing, because I didn't like that it felt like we knew where all the DLC maps were going to go. I think this is a good thing that they were canceled. Now there's a lot more mystery with this DLC season, so I'm actually really happy that those leaks are wrong. And maybe it would be better if you didn't even point this out. Like we'd be surprised, like, "Well, what happened, and where'd this map come from?" or whatever. And even says this about this map, because this is supposed to be the space station map, right? It says not even the space station map, by the way. It's just labeled that because as previously leaked about, it's super unique. So the thing is that even Astra Malorum, that's supposed to be the space station map, like they didn't really like do the space station. They completely made it something else, into like whatever, a red skull with a red glow in space, like whatever happening there. Like this is good, because now we don't know the entire DLC season before it actually comes out. Now, when the actual game comes out, who knows? We'll see exactly about that, because I think like not only could it be leaked in files because they leaked like the code names of all the DLC maps every single year, the game comes out for some weird reason. But I think more importantly, like if assuming they don't just reveal something in a radio, because if you guys remember, there's a radio in Liberty Falls that literally told us that DLC 4 is going to take place in Janus Towers. Like, it's something that I didn't talk about too much because it was just like so on the nose. I'm like, why are we just spoiling this DLC map? But whatever though. Regardless though, I think this is overall a good thing. Don't get me wrong, I love the idea of a Japanese volcano map, even the space station map, and potentially even the Vietnam and what was the last one, and what's it called, Afghanistan maps. Like, those sounded cool, but I'm just happy to hear that we don't know where we're going with the DLC season. Now, one thing that we can say is that maybe the idea of them are still there. Like, obviously, I think there's still going to be that idea to tie them to each individual characters, and that would mean that Astra Malorum is going to tie to potentially one of them, maybe not, or maybe they threw that idea out entirely. But regardless, though, I am very interested in the DLC season now. I mean, I always was, but to me, it's just so much better when it's a mystery. But we'll see how long it stays a mystery. But regardless, though, I'd love to hear all of your guys' thoughts and opinions on everything here. You glad that we don't know exactly where all our DLC maps are going to be now? And also, what do you think they're going to do with them? Do you think that we're going to keep that idea of each, I guess, map tying to one specific character, or you think that's not going to be the case? Let me know all your thoughts and opinions and theories about where we're going with the DLC season. But regardless, though, that's going to wrap it for me. Thank you guys all so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.